What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Troll Bro Dude. Before we get into anything else, I want to talk about our partners from Underdog Fantasy, the newest and best place to play fantasy sports and win big prizes. So if you have not already, sign up with our promo code SLOP. That's S-L-O-P. You can get a $100 deposit match. Use it this weekend on NFL playoff games. I know it's wild card weekend. You can do higher or lower on your favorite players' stats in the NFL, or your least favorite players. If you hate the Giants, you're an Eagles fan. At lower on Daniel Jones yards. If you want to go, if you're a Penn State guy, you want to go higher on Saquon Barkley's, then you can do that. All of that fun stuff. Sign up for Underdog using our promo code. You can also do our slop season contest where you can win up to $500 in bonus cash on Underdog. So the link is in the description for all of this. Please check it out if you have not already. You can also do a fantasy contest this weekend for the NFL. I will be doing one tomorrow on Friday. If you want to join that, we're going to get 10 people in that. Should be a lot of fun. So Sam, we have breaking news.
Mm-hmm.
The Los Angeles Lakers are bringing in Meyers Leonard for a workout.
I might have to let this one be because with the rumors that Kyrie might go there, I just can't think of a way to take this. Yeah, I'm just going to let it sit because I can't. For the good of the podcast, I think it's better if I sit this one out.
Yeah. So my favorite thing to come out of this, obviously the Kyrie jokes aside, was Shams tweeting Meyers Leonard last played in January 2020, at which point he had season-ending shoulder and ankle surgery based on issues that stem from the ankle surgery. He's been sidelined for almost 2 years and recently was fully cleared to work out for NBA teams.
Yeah, that's why.
That's
why he was out of the league for 2 years.
Everyone famously knows this.
Well, yeah, I was just remembering, why is Meyers Leonard not playing right now? And I always think, it was his surgery. He was hurt. I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah, he got hurt in a heated gaming moment. Heated NBA
gaming moment in the NBA specifically.
He had one of the funniest ever live slurs, just because he didn't even helper face or anything, like it just was totally natural.
Yeah, it just was going with the flow.
And I think it's his wife is calling for him or someone off camera, but there always seemed like your agent's on the phone. Okay, I gotta go, guy. Just total not real.
Didn't even register. Didn't even register. The other great thing that came out of this was Ennis Freedom, friend of the podcast.
Let's go.
Tweeting, "It's time to sue this whole motherfucking league." After Meyers Leonard got a workout. So stay tuned for that new lawsuit dropping. Ennis Freedom versus the NBA.
Let's go. Let's get him back.
Yeah,
gonna be on the Blaze. I mean, I don't know. Jonathan Isaac and the DeVosses, I feel like, might have they should have a roster spot for him.
Yeah, it's a great point. They love centers.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about for sure.
So what you're telling me is Enes Kanter went from the Blazers to the Blaze pipeline. The Blaze Sports.
Oh God. Oh, that's a good one. All right, that's points.
Anyway,
that's points.
Oh, shout out to our friends at the CIA. So as we move on from this massive slop that has dropped, that Meyers Leonard will be making his way back into the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
We are here today to talk about something much more important, which is the Zach Lowe and Bill Simmons Home and Home podcast series. We're going to talk about the first part, the Eastern Conference, where they pick their Eastern Conference All-Stars. So first off, this episode was an hour and 45 minutes, I believe.
Something like that, yeah. And did I listen to all of it? Abso-fucking-lutely. Oh my God.
I ate it up. I might have listened twice.
We are just, you got to understand, because Trill and I get shit for doing these meta podcasts about podcasts. But I'm sorry, this is the real shit.
This is the most fun.
Yeah, this is what sickos like us live for, is fucking Bill and Zach chopping it up. They even did the shit that we do where they like just didn't start the list for like 20 minutes. Like,
they riffed on some shit,
Yeah.
and then they'll be like, wait, weren't we supposed to be talking about the starters?
Yeah.
And they're like, anyway, Mark Cuban should sell the fucking team.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Bill was spitting on that one. Yeah, Bill had a really strong outside of like the Trae Young strays, which like is all boomer shit. He was really cooking. Bill was in his bag today.
So, do we want to talk about the starters thing? Because that was like the main chunk of the podcast was.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone's been talking about it. How do you pick between these 4 players for 3 spots on the All-Star team for All-NBA, all that shit? Even though Jokic will make it and Embiid will make second team for All-NBA, because that's how the media works.
Yeah.
But
Zach is a coward. Zach decided coward route.
Zach went coward route. Zach went coward route, moved Tatum to guard where he has not played the entire season.
Yeah. Not a single minute.
I don't think he's played a single minute.
No. I understand, because I guess if you want to argue, would that team be functional? I think that team would absolutely be functional. Like, I think Jason Tatum absolutely could play shooting guard. So it's not as like ridiculous as like, I don't know, putting like Mikal Bridges at like center or something.
Or even
like
last year when it was like put Embiid or Jokic at power forward.
Right. That's
they don't play. They never play those positions. And like, could they play together? Yes. Would it be clunky and weird? And like, would they have to figure some stuff out? Yeah, probably. But like, I think there is an argument to be made that, that a guy not playing any minutes at all at that position, ever really, like when was the last time Tatum played shooting guard?
Sorry, can I interrupt with late breaking slop?
Yes.
So the tweet that you read earlier about Shams talking about that, Shams just now quote tweeted it. That tweet was 22 minutes ago. It's 6:09 p.m., 6:10 p.m. He just quote tweeted it with this addendum. Leonard was suspended in March 2021 after using an anti-Semitic slur on the stream. He later apologized and has spent time with Jewish leaders and immersed himself in the Jewish community over the last couple of years. M-, which the league has been aware of. I love the rat mode on this. 22 minutes. 22 minutes.
Little footnote here, by the way. Yeah. Just in case you didn't know, also there were some slurs said.
There was just a couple of slurs.
Yeah.
Like hardly matters.
Yeah. Not any more important than the ankle and shoulder surgeries.
Yeah. Michael Richards coming back to comedy clubs and just saying, I just got tired of the thing. And then, what was that? Never mind. It was just something at the Laugh Factory happened. It's fine.
My heart wasn't in it. My heart wasn't in it. Yeah.
Anyway, Tatum. So Tatum, at shooting guard, I think is something, a position he could hypothetically play.
Has he ever played it?
No, he has gotten like spot minutes at that with like really crazy jumbo lineups.
Like last year or the year before or something.
I mean, you could also make the argument that Jaylen Brown probably guards power forwards more often than Jason Tatum does, kind of, especially like meatier, beefier guys, because just Jaylen is so strong. And like, who is guarding who in that one? I mean, Jason Tatum's pretty cleanly a forward though, like is the point here, like listed it. All of his minutes are almost entirely at small forward and power forward. And it's usually a pretty mixed bag of those.
He's very clearly he's not a shooting guard. Like,
right.
It's not even like the Paul George thing where you can say, okay, Paul George plays shooting guard, but he's probably more of a small forward, but he plays shooting guard because he actually gets real minutes there. Like Tatum is pretty clearly a forward, like you said, small forward, power forward. So I think you have to choose between these guys when you're making this all-star. And also, I do think that all-star starter stuff doesn't matter as much as all-NBA. Like, if you make the all-star team, that's all anyone's going to remember. No one's going to remember who started for which team. Like, no one really gives a shit about that at the end of the day. Like, if you go on their Wikipedia page, it doesn't say all-star starter. It just says all-star. But like when you see first team NBA versus second team NBA versus third team NBA, those are things that actually historically speaking, people differentiate and they generally matter more to players. Now, players do care about starting in the All-Star game. I'm not saying that they don't, but just when we're looking back on this stuff, I think that it doesn't matter as much.
Right.
The thing is so the Durant injury obviously throws a wrench into all this because Durant still has played a ton of games to start the year. Like, even if Durant doesn't play between now and the All-Star break, him and Embiid are going to have around the same amount of games played.
Yeah.
Because right now, Durant has 39 games played, and I believe Embiid has, hold on one second, because Embiid currently has 29. So he has 10 more games on him. So they're probably going to be about even, let's say, by the time Durant comes back from this injury, maybe if Embiid misses more games. So that kind of at least balances out from that argument for that standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
The question to me is, if you had to pick your 3 front court spots for the starters, who would you pick? Because I think you have to include KD in there if you're including Embiid.
Right now, right today, because I just looked at it and I hemmed and hawed about it and I went back and forth. I think this is something where it pretty cleanly depends on what you think about availability. Because I think just from a performance standpoint, just that, not factoring in durability, I think Embiid is the second behind Durant. Like, I think pretty clearly, and it's how much do you want to account for that? And then there's a similar thing going on with Giannis and Tatum, just in terms of availability, because Tatum is probably the lowest performing of the 4, but has 40 games played compared to Giannis's, I think, 34 or 36 or something, and Embiid's 29 that he has, So what do you account for that? And, there's other, like, if I really wanted to rat mode with Tatum here, it won't matter because starters are fan vote shit. So, like, who fucking cares? Andrew Wiggins was an all-star starter last year. But I think that at the end of the day, if we're just talking about putting the highest performing guys on there, you could rat mode out a case for Tatum, I think. And what I would do as a Celtics fan, what I'm going to do as a Celtics fan as we get closer to this, is, he's on a better team. His stats are a little bit worse, but his team has won more. Like, what does that count for? The problem with that argument is, while the Celtics are the best team in the NBA, all these teams, these other guys are all also very good. It's not like there's a Russell Westbrook, Oklahoma City Thunder situation amongst these guys. And the Nets are second. The Sixers are 4th right now.
And by the time the All-Star game comes around, these standings could be changed. Like,
exactly.
That's really what it comes down to, is because, like, whenever it comes down to, like, picking 2 guys from a team versus 1 guy from a team, I always have a problem with this when we're a month out, because I'm like, well, what if the Sixers win the next 12 games and then they only have 1 All-Star? Like, it does seem weird. So I think that you have to take team record into consideration when picking these things, but I also don't think it can be the end-all be-all. Like, I think it has to be a little bit of a balance of performance plus team record. And I think the best argument from the Celtics perspective for Tatum would be he's the best player on the best team, and not having that guy start would be kind of ridiculous, because I still think the Celtics would probably and should probably be considered the championship favorites. Mm-hmm. And if you look back and you go, well, they didn't even have a starter in the All-Star game, that seems weird.
Yeah. Again, it comes down to this, this generational thing. Because Tatum's really slowed down. Like, when I was losing my mind on this podcast, when I thought Tatum was the MVP.
First month of the season, I think it was either him or Steph.
Yeah. And he's just kind of, slowed down. He's kind of had his slow month. I think he's probably going to pick it up again here soon. He usually does as the year goes along. Like once the doldrums come in, he kind of like becomes a different player, and I don't know, keeps going. I mean, the durability, I think, would be the argument for him. He's going to have played more than everybody else.
Let the record state that he missed a game for his son's birthday.
He did miss a game for his son's birthday.
Doesn't want it enough.
No heart of a champion. I think Giannis's case would be that just his team has been a mash unit kind of around him of guys that can't score, and that they're still somehow, in the mix despite having a really weird year where Bud like is shocked by the taste of water and like just things like this are coming
Dasani, to be specific. It's gross.
It's water. It's water. Like we're all gonna pretend water tastes different. I'm sorry.
This is water. He's getting his David Foster Wallace on at the
he is. So honestly, but with before Durant's injury, I would have said Durant clears, and I would hear arguments about the other three guys. By the time the All-Star game comes around, I think this is going to be really close, and it's really going to depend on what's going on. It's a good thing that this is not decided by fucking fan.
I agree. I agree. And also, Embiid, Tatum passed Embiid in fan voting today, so it's those Giannis and Durant they're always going to be because of who they are. But I do think that I guess my thing is that why is it an immediate foregone conclusion that Giannis should be starting? Because if you look at the statistical argument from not games played, not all the things that we talked about, and context is important for these things. I don't think that that isn't the case, but also we're getting arguments from Bucks fans and from podcasters that Drew and Brooke Lopez should also be in consideration for the All-Star team. So is it Giannis dragging the team to this record, or is it a team effort? Because I think that people are really ignoring the fact that Giannis is having the worst year of his career since before his first MVP. And it's something that we've brought up a few times, but like, if you go, I'm going to get my calculator rat on a little bit here. If you're to compare Embiid and Giannis, and I think Tatum and Giannis are a little bit closer in terms of like statistical output on a per game basis.
They're very close. Like I looked at Embiid clear statistically. Giannis and Tatum are a little closer because Tatum is also kind of having a really bad shooting year by his standards, at least so far. Again, he usually picks it up at the end of the year, but
they mentioned that on the podcast. They said like he's having from three, he's shooting a little bit worse.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking about like a head-to-head thing here, like I've knocked Giannis for his shooting this year in the same way that you would knock Tatum, although his team is pretty good and he's been kind of at least the head of the snake so far to start the year and drives a lot of the team's success.
Yeah.
Once again, all these teams aren't that far apart in the standings, so maybe this changes sometime in the next few weeks. But if we're just comparing Embiid and Giannis, Embiid is ahead of Giannis in EPM, BPM, Raptor, LeBron. That's not even public, but Krishna has tweeted a few times that he's ahead of him in that as well. The Sixers net rating with just Joel Embiid. So the one argument I keep hearing is like, well, Embiid has Harden, who's also in the All-Star conversation, and his team's been better around him. But even if you look at the net rating stuff, the Sixers with just Joel Embiid, no James Harden in these minutes, are a plus 7.5 per 100 possessions. The Bucks with Giannis, Drew, and Brooke all on the court are a plus 3.4. So just Embiid with the other role players on the Sixers are better than those three all together in a similar amount of minutes. And I'm not saying that can be the end-all be-all, but if we're splitting hairs here, really, Embiid is better true shooting, better efficiency, field goal percentage-wise. The Sixers have even if you want to do the defensive argument, the Sixers have a 108 defensive rating when Embiid's on the court. The Bucks have a 110 defensive rating with Giannis on the court. And I know Drew's missed some games, but like if Brooke Lopez is a defensive player of the year candidate, then having both of those guys should make your defense literally the best. And when they are on the court, it is very good together. But like my whole thing here is if you want to go down the statistical argument for Embiid versus Giannis just based on this season, and we're not going just on games played, Embiid clears him in almost every stat except for assist percentage, which actually it's pretty close.
It's way closer than I thought it was going to be. Yeah.
It's 5% apart. Turnover percentage, Giannis is barely beating him. And then rebounding, he's barely beating him as well. So, like, Embiid is having the better statistical season.
And it's not a question. And it's not a question, in my opinion. And I think the Sixers are performing, considering the starts that both those teams got off to, too. Like, he's having a better impact in terms of winning. I get the case that because Harden is having a very strong season too.
He's good. Yeah, he's good.
So I get that argument. It's the same argument you would kind of, you could make against Tatum. I don't know that the team context stuff. I feel like it's just so hard, especially with. But I just think vibes wise too. I just feel like the Sixers are in a better place than the Bucks right now. There's a lot of angst around the Bucks. The Bucks are in a very, even though they're a much better team, it seems like they're a little more, just they're kind of more like last year's Celtics, where there's a lot of people in the know are talking about people being disgruntled, like what's going on,
Sure.
and I think that part of that runs off of Giannis as a player. Now, it's a tribute to how good Giannis is. I turn into Baldo's stop whenever the Celtics play the Bucks because it's like infuriating to watch him. It is infuriating how there's not a ton of skill. It is just that he is an absolute freak athlete. Compared to at least there's skill, but it's just not as high as some of these other stars we're talking about. It's not Joel Embiid out there. It's not Jason Tatum out there. It's definitely not fucking Kevin Durant out there. But I do think that it's just pretty clear that Joel is having the better year. I think if you want to make the case that Giannis ahead of Embiid, you've got to go to games played, and it's really not that many. It's like 7, I think, is the difference in games played. So I don't know. I think Joel honestly would probably be second on my ballot, and I'm not just cheering. I'm not just pandering to the YKB audience here. I think it's been pretty clear that it would be Joel should get that second front court spot. Besides Durant.
I do think that people are really underestimating how good of a season Embiid is having because it feels like a lot of the stats across the board are inflated. Mm-hmm. But Embiid is shooting better field goal percentage wise than Giannis and takes the large majority of his shots outside of the restricted area, whereas Giannis takes way more shots in the restricted area. He's shooting better at the rim. He's shooting way better from mid-range, almost over 20 percentage points better from mid-range. Yeah. 3-pointers are falling. He's getting to the line just as much as he has throughout his career. I just think if you're making the statistical argument and we're just going on the actual games that are being played, Embiid's clearly having a better season than Giannis. Giannis is the better player, and in a playoff series, almost everyone is taking Giannis in a head-to-head matchup for sure. Absolutely, he's now proven it multiple times in the playoffs. You have to give him the benefit of the doubt. But if we're just talking All-Star game, I don't understand why it can't even be a conversation. Is my whole thing on this, and I think Giannis's shot. It really just comes down to Middleton being out, and Giannis's shot just. The touch just being completely gone when he was able to rely on that last year in a way where mid-range wise, he had the best mid-range shooting season of his career a year ago. And he was really making a difference as a multiple level scorer instead of just a guy who can get to the line and the rim. So overall, I think that it's just, I would pick Embiid over Giannis if we're just going based on performance. So my starters were, all right, so Halliburton's out for the next 2 weeks at least, too. I don't know if you saw that news that came out that he's also out. So
I still think he clears, to be honest.
Yeah. So I have Halliburton as my starting point guard because I think that he has had the way that Indiana has played. They're the 7 seed right now, I believe, maybe the 6 seed. Mm-hmm. Them and the Knicks have been kind of jostling for those positions. I believe they're the 7 seed right now. The way that they've been playing, they need an all-star, and he's been very clearly made the leap in his 3rd season.
I even without the team success thing, I just think he's earned it. What other guard besides Donovan Mitchell are you going to give that spot to?
I mean, it really
no one else is close. Jalen Brunson maybe has the best case next, and that's tough. I don't know.
I would take. I just think honestly, I think Harden has an argument. I don't think he should start, but I think, and this was part of the podcast that really pissed me off, which was that they did this whole thing on the rarity of the 20-point, 10 assist season. And there's only been 15 or 20 throughout NBA history or whatever. And it was mostly the greatest players of all time. Chris Paul, Steve Nash, Magic Johnson, whatever. And
it's funny because I knew how rare that was because I remember how crazy John Wall's assist seasons were.
Yeah.
I remember looking at the end of the season that year. It was like 20, probably like 2016 or something, 2015, somewhere in there. And it was like, and he finished like 20 and 10. And I was like, oh, so that wasn't that bad. And thinking about it, because I like grew up like watching Rajon Rondo get like 10 assists every game, like on the Celtics side. 10 assists is just rare, and to also score on 10 assists, with 10 assists is crazy. So
yeah,
I just think Halliburton's like open and shut case. And to your point, where I think you're going with this, James Harden, as soon as he qualifies with games played, because he's missed some time, will overtake him and also have a 20 and 10 season.
Yeah, I think I would still give the edge to Halliburton due to the fact that he doesn't have a Joel Embiid level superstar on his team.
Yeah.
A lot of those assists do come from passes that are set up in the pick and roll. Not to say that James isn't the one creating them, but it's a lot easier when the play finisher is Joel Embiid as opposed to Miles Turner or someone like that. Yeah. And it's beneficial to both Harden and Embiid that they can play together for sure. There's not an argument on that. The part of the podcast I felt was ridiculous was the fact that they go through this whole thing and then Bill gets to his list and says he doesn't even include Harden. And his whole thing is, well, he hasn't played enough games and he doesn't try on defense. And like, I watched Harden play defense this year and I've actually thought he's been pretty good. Like after the first few games of the season, he did not give a shit. He should have tried harder. He still has moments where I'm like, not hustling. The off-ball shit's always going to be bad with him. But like on the ball, I've been pretty impressed. Like when especially we've always known Harden can guard up. But I've been surprised by how disruptive he can be as a defender when he's guarding the bigger guys, causing turnovers, really like affecting the shots that the Julius Randles are taking, and guys that he traditionally can, like I said, scale up, guard that power forward position. And like, do I think he's an elite defender? No. I think he's like an average defender. I honestly think he's a better defender than Tyrese Halliburton. And I thought that it was kind of ridiculous that he used that as his point when Halliburton is known for also having some issues defensively, especially on the ball, because he's just not strong enough to guard a lot of guys. And
it's boomer stuff. It's boomer stuff. They're camouflaging it with boomer stuff, which, like, look, is James Harden a great playoff player? No. Do you want to hold that against him? That's fine. But sorry, you got to put him in the All-Star game. Like, you can't, like
didn't include him at all.
Right. Like all NBA MVP stuff, I don't know. We always get into this with like regular season awards where like who a guy is in the playoffs and like who Zach and Bill kind of have a Harden vendetta. I kind of buy this honestly even more than like, for example, the anti-Joel Embiid media bias, because this is just clear, like where it's like a guy who's been who forced 2 trades and you're dead to them, because it's old school. God forbid you like don't like your boss. I don't know. Like it's just an absurd thing. I think the argument has to be with Harden. There's 25 games played. Other guys who have played 25 games are Jaren Jackson Jr. and Anthony Davis, who are also guys I'm like looking at being like, do I really want to put these guys on All-Star games? Now, those guys are going to be missing more games between now and when.
Especially Anthony Davis.
Yeah, Anthony Davis, not Jaren Jackson Jr. But they're going to, the games are going to accumulate for some of these guys. Steph Curry has a similar situation where I think he's only got like 29 games played and he's going to get more between now and then.
Jimmy Butler, like he included Jimmy Butler on his team, which I think is fine, but also Jimmy has played less minutes per game than Harden, 3 less minutes per game than Harden, and he's only played 3 more games, and I know at least in 2 of those he left early with injury. So, and then he was like, well, but Jimmy plays defense, and it's like, okay. You're going out of your way to really hate on the kind of season that Harden is having, because if you're not even willing to discuss it for the All-Star game, like it's one thing if you don't want to include him on your roster. I think he's on the fringes of the conversation. Like I don't think he's smack dab in the middle. There's an argument he could be a starter. There's an argument he could be left off the team entirely. But the argument that was made was just very disingenuous from my position. Yeah, but
I personally would not have Yeah, Harden has 930 total minutes. Jimmy has 974. Like that's
40 minutes.
Yeah.
One game, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, with the way that Doc plays his guys, that's basically one game at this point. But if you guys want to watch the rest of this episode, it will be on Patreon. You can subscribe. The link is in the description to hear us talk about the rest of this. We'll talk about our all-star starters, our bench guys, and then next week on the public podcast, we'll do the Western Conference. So subscribe, baby. Sign up.
Get in there. Capitalism. We love it.
Let's go.
Let's go.
1%.